Hi everyone, I am Nightshifter and today we're gonna talk about Chubby from hit fighting game Granblue Fantasy vs Rising or something along those lines. This is the first video I'm actually making on this game, but regardless, I am a master rank player with this particular character, and in this video I hope that I can help you also get that badge for yourself. I consider myself pretty knowledgeable of this character, but I have to preface this whole thing by saying that I have like 800 matches in this game total, give or take, so I'm still relatively inexperienced with most of the cast. So just a heads up, if any advice that would be of general nature seems iffy to you or just kinda bad, well, consider this my option select. If it sucks, that's why. If it's good, well, I don't know, I'm just good at the game. But jokes aside, I think I should be able to help in regards to Chubby, and I guess I'm going to prove it to you as the video goes along. This video is mostly unscripted. I plan to make a bigger and more properly edited guide later, but I want to keep it for after the spring patch that's gonna come with Galleon, the next DLC character, just so nothing in it is out of date. In the meantime, I wanted to do this because I noticed that Chubby has a surprisingly small amount of resources, or at least ones that are up to date. So I wanted there to at least be something, and I like rambling about the stuff I like, and maybe some people appreciate this format where it's more like you're having a conversation. But yes, this is mostly unscripted. I do have a few lines here and there after which to structure what I'm saying, but yes, I think that is all I have to say for the introduction to this. So we'll take things slow and start with the basic things, give extra notes where needed to specifics, and so on. With all that out of the way, let us begin. First of all, how does Chubby play? What does she do? What makes her unique? And if you're just picking her up, what should you know just as a starting point? Well, some core things would be she has really big buttons with a lot of reach and a lot of speed. She has extremely strong mobility tools, in that she is the only character in the game who gets an essentially free double jump, as you can see, and she also gets a pod float, like this, to stall her air momentum. So what does this do for her? Well, it makes her extremely difficult to anti-air, because if the opponent decides to chew H when seeing her jump, she kinda just has to jump again and she will bait out the anti-air and they'll get bonked by the pizza cutter JH here, also just really big. And she double jumps, the opponent waited, okay, they're ready to anti-air, oops, pod float, nice anti-air bro. But yes, this is definitely something to use and abuse with her. Honestly, probably one of her strongest features by itself. Another thing related to mobility, her unique command dash in soooo. This is extremely fast, and I don't think any other character in the game has this kind of speed. Maybe Versucia with enough momentum, but besides that, this is really good for closing the gap. Even from mid-range, it's harder to tell that it's happening than her normal run, because it's kind of just like a burst option. She just suddenly does it and jump scares you. I am bad at doing this, but she can do stuff like that. She can do dashing into lows, especially to check opponents walking backwards. trying to push themselves out of her enormous range. A very good gap closing tool, though it has a couple drawbacks in that compared to her standard run, she cannot cancel this into a spot dodge to dodge projectiles and things like that, and she also cannot jump during it, unlike her normal run. However, instead of spot dodging, she can still cancel into her unique parry off it. Though more on that parry later, because it's pretty specific. In any case, with her mobility out of the way, we should talk about her unique SKL gauge, and something that really differentiates her from the rest of the cast. When the average Granblue character has like 4 special moves with different strength levels, like light fireball, medium fireball, heavy, so on and so forth, GBVSR just has 1 special per motion input and attack strength. So Choo-Choo-L is this, Choo-Choo-M is that, Choo-On-4L is this, Choo-On-4H is this, so on and so forth. She has a total of, I think 12 special moves total off the top of my head, so definitely just the most in the game outright. This also makes her a very flexible character in general, because this amount of special moves for several different situations just allows her to deal with basically anything well. I don't think GBVSR has any particularly terrible matchup because of this. She can just handle basically any situation in one way or another. So that's a big bonus for her. But the SKL gauge, every special takes 3 pretty much. And same goes for her ultimate specials. All of these take 3 skill blocks. And the exceptions are her heavy special moves, the EX ones. All of these take 5 each, but they're strong enough to warrant it, trust me. In terms of other things, her pod float takes 1 SKL block to start with, and it drains more the longer she floats. She can also kind of steer the float a little bit, as you can see, if you want. And her double jump also takes 1 block. So just something to note, because managing this is gonna be super important for her, as you probably guessed. One bad thing about this gauge is that she loses access to all her special moves if she doesn't have enough of it. Like, the special moves on this character all being tied to this one gauge means she has the benefit of being able to do them just multiple times in a row as much as she wants in the limit of her gauge. But it also means that if she is running low, then she temporarily loses access to every move. Whereas every character has a unique cooldown for each move, and it's pretty rare that you would ever spend all cooldowns. So yes, you get the idea. You are actually gonna have to look out for your gauge in the middle of a match. Be careful about it. Something else that sets GBVSR apart from the rest of the cast is her auto combos. From her standing normals, so her light, medium, and heavy, she has a light auto combo, a medium one, and a heavy one, consisting of 4 moves total. Something notable is that the 4th part of each of these is not special cancelable. You can cancel the first 3 hits of each auto combo, but never the 4th. And also, because these are whiff cancelable, as you notice, this makes her really hard to whiff punish compared to others, because whenever she whiffs something, she can just stick out another hitbox faster than anyone else. Though she cannot delay cancel the follow-ups, they will always true string pretty much. So you can't frame trap with them. And good, because low-key that would be broken. But you get the idea. And although this can make her difficult to whiff punish, going swinging too much leaves her prone to getting jumped in on. Because I have Gran set to do a little yump here, a little yumpy, and if I go swinging as he jumps, then chances are I will die. I will get punished because 2B just has way too much total recovery on these normals, especially the heavies, to the point where she just won't get to block. And no matter how many times she swings, she's not gonna turn around. She's just gonna make herself easier to punish in that situation. So do be aware of that. And you will have to use safer options against those sorts of approaches, like her 2M, but more on that later when we talk about more of her normals. The auto combos are only attached to her standing normals. Her crouching ones don't have any. But that's about it for them. Besides the fact that they have a thing called Multistrike Protocol, which is basically just pressing a different attack level button during them. So if I do light, medium, I get that little ender. If I do medium, light, same thing, I get the same thing. If I do mediums into heavy, I get that little 5-hit flourish, same with heavy into medium. And if I do heavy light, I get that little baseball swing. So those have a lot of unique uses, but the most notable and basic thing is that they restore some of 2B's skill gauge on hit. So if I do this, light medium is going to restore half a skill block. This baseball swing also restores half. And medium heavy or heavy medium restores a full block. So they are good to incorporate in combos, and especially if you are low on skill gauge or meter, you can just kinda do one of these enders to get some of your skill gauge back instead of spending it. It's important to manage it. Another important thing to note, because I almost forgot to mention it actually, but auto combo normals, the mediums and especially heavies, for these normals, hurt boxes come out noticeably earlier than hit boxes. So you can sometimes get hit in pretty cursed ways if I time this well. Kinda like that. Hold on. There it is. You can sometimes get hit in cursed ways because of the extended hurt boxes that come out early. And this can also be relevant if you are whiffing right in the opponent's face and they stick out a fast button. It can counter hit you out of the auto combo follow-up you're trying to do, even though you're so far away, because of the extended hurt boxes. It can sometimes happen and it'll look cursed, but that's just kinda how it is. It can also happen with mediums, though more rarely just because they're a lot faster. But just something I figured you should keep in mind. Now she has these auto combos at a price, and that is dash normals. I think I mentioned it offhandedly earlier, but she has no dash medium, no dash heavy, and also no dash light. Womp womp. She will have to just skip neutral in a different way. But she doesn't exactly play Granblue, as you probably could tell by now. If you've been playing different characters in the game until now, then she might take a lot of getting used to. But besides that, I think she is very comfortable once you get the hang of her, honestly. So I hope that this little introduction got you to get a feel for exactly how she plays. We're gonna go over specifics now, basically, and we're going to start with her normals. Let's start with 5L. And this is already a strong start because this is probably her single most important pressure button. It's +2 on block, and it's also her only plus on block normal that she has, compared to other characters who might have multiple. Otherwise, a lot of normals, or honestly just about 90% of them, are very unsafe. So 5mm -8, 5M -10, heavies -10, so on and so forth, 2M -5. Everything is unsafe or just kinda negative, but leaves her right in the opponent's face. You kinda want to cancel into auto combo follow-ups or a special with her at basically all times, unless you're pressuring with 5L in particular. 5L into itself will frame trap because it leaves a 4-frame gap, and the fastest buttons in this game are 5 frames. So yes, throws are 4 frames, but if the opponent tries to do that, and I'm gonna make Gran do that just to show it off. If he tries to throw, then he just gets counter hit because he is simply not in range to throw after a 5L. It creates a lot of spacing. Though it also means it's not the best button for immediate tick throws because of it, since it also puts her out of range. Now, what else can you do with this spacing though? Because it's not just over, the pressure isn't just over once you're spaced out. 5L actually creates perfect spacing for 2B, and what do I mean by this? Well, a lot of 2B's pressure actually revolves around spacing out the opponent, rather than always being in their face. She wants to kinda make them feel trapped by the sheer range of her buttons. And so 5L 5L 2M is a very good string that can do just that. They will be in the range of 2B's heavies, while not really being able to press anything themselves because it won't reach. Like these fucking things outspace some of the absolute god buttons in this game. Like, I have pressured, for example, Catalina. I have outspaced her far medium with these heavies and with Punish Term. So, this is how 2B makes herself really hard to contest in pressure. But a bit of a tangent. 5L is very good for that. 5LL, safe on block, and probably her only normal that's -2. And her 2L also is, if Gran just decides to not be an ass and actually block it. There we go. Everything else unsafe pretty much. You don't wanna stop on these 90% of the time. You want to string into a special move. So that's basically all you need to know about auto combo follow-ups on block. Heavies, like I said before, they are really good tools for spaced pressure, and even on block you can special cancel them to stay plus, because a lot of 2B specials are plus on block and let her keep pressure going. It kind of helps to compensate for unsafe normals and such. But yes, just keep this in mind always as a general concept, that 2B wants to keep her opponents at roughly this range, just far enough that her heavies or her 2M would reach to whiff punish any stupid things they might try to do, like press buttons or, you know, play the game. How dare they? Another important thing to note about her 5H range is that it lets her contest some space pressure that other characters just kinda cannot. So for instance, I'm in the corner and Gran really spaced himself out here. He can do a lot of things. He can wait for me to do something. He can do his good old boot and maybe be plus on block. But it's really scary for most characters to try to escape the corner here, because he would be outside the range of most 6XLs here. He could just 2H me if I jumped, if I tried to jump, if I ran towards him, he could just donk me with like a heavy or a crouching medium or something. But if you're 2B, then in a lot of cases you can kinda just 5H and start a block string or a combo, just because it has so much range that it's more difficult to space out, and it can mess with some pressure sequences from opponents that would work on most other characters, but they just don't on her. And additionally, remember she has a double jump, so if you do try to jump out with her, you have the option to bait out anti-airs, which can kinda help her turn the tides a bit. Her defense is a bit worse than average in general, or at least it's widely considered to be, because her fastest button is 6 frames unlike the usual 5, and her only reversal is metered. But she does have a few ways to slither out of the corner, like I mentioned earlier, with the immense range on 5H, the double jump, and opponents can try to space themselves out even further to stay out of 5H range, but at this point they give 2B a lot of real estate here to work with. They give her more space than average, and she can afford to do things like 236M instead of 5H. She can more safely do things like dashing into 2M. 2M also being a very good defensive button and pretty safe to throw out. But yes, just something worth noting on defense. More about 2L, it's her best normal for tick throws, because it actually leaves her close enough to throw after it, as you can see. And she can also properly frame trap throws after it, because she can cancel into more light follow-ups, she can do another 2L as well as a 5L, and she can properly delay cancel these. So even though I'm point blank, I can just frame trap Gran trying to throw me if I just delay these cancels enough. It'll take a bit of practice though, so be sure to do that if you plan to run this pressure. But yes, very good button for up close pressure. And also a very good button in close range neutral like this, because it can very easily check opponents trying to walk back, combined with her 6U. If they get caught by this, it's a full combo, because you just gotta go into 5L, or it can even just lead to an immediate strike throw if you do it from close enough. It's also really good for just general pressure strings with 6U, in the sense that I didn't mention it before, but 2B can cancel her normals into this command dash for 4 skill blocks. And she can just, I don't know, let's say I land a stray 5H in neutral, bam, now you're in a strike throw. So it's pretty good for that purpose, as well as just sneaking in throws in pressure whenever you feel like it, whenever the opponent is conditioned enough to respect it, because of course they can mash or reversal out of this if they see it coming, or even on reaction if they're a particularly good player, but you get the idea. These kinds of things, 2B has a lot of these in her pressure. I talk about her pressure a lot because it's honestly Probably the one thing about her that deserves the most talking about. But she has a lot of things like this in pressure that are technically reactable, but there's just so many options that most opponents usually cannot keep up if you present enough of them and at the right time. A lot of her pressure, besides spacing people out, revolves around just getting a read on their habits and figuring out how they tend to deal with your pressure. So like if they throw a lot in response, then you frame trap them. If they kinda block it out often, you go for a throw. If they spot dodge a lot, you can do this move, which will catch that. But that's actually gonna be the next thing we talk about after normals, this particular move. But soooo, normals. This is basically safe on block at the distances where you'd use it. No one's punishing this even though it's -5. And it's kind of a god normal because it's 8 frames and goes just about as far as her 5M, which is also pretty damn huge. But it's got some great defensive uses. Even though it's not as rewarding as 5M because it doesn't have an auto combo string, it can still get some stuff if you just special cancel it. And it hits low. It will catch opponents trying to roll through it. It is safer against spot dodges and also just generally safer in situations where 5M or 5H would get her killed. So for example, earlier I talked about how if the opponent jumps these, then soooo gets hit, guaranteed pretty much. If they jump 2M, then soooo has enough time to anti-air. Do I still have that recording? I do. I 2M, and bam, I still get to anti-air them. So it's a very good defensive button to press, and also a way to be kind of semi-aggressive in neutral, if that makes sense. You dash in and throw out a little poke here, but if it doesn't hit, if it gets blocked or something, then you're still really far away. They can't really get a guaranteed turn, and would you look at that, they are in 5H range and all that stuff. So really good defensive button and just really good safe button. Great for stopping people from running at you without committing too hard to the auto combos. So honestly, it's a good habit to try to use these. This singular thing, to try to use this button more when opponents are aggressive or when they often try to steal turns from you, and also as a whiff punish tool because it's faster than her 5M, so it's a more consistent tool for that purpose. Just really good button all around. 5H, I've probably talked about it enough. It's really big, and even though it's technically unsafe, no one is punishing this from tip range. Tip range is where you want to use this from, always. And worth noting, canceling into the second part, 5HH, will preserve any spacing that existed beforehand. So you can still run spaced pressure after this, but if you do 5HHH, the 3-part thing, this advances her forward a lot, and she's suddenly not as safe because she gets in range for most opponents' pokes this way. So it's not recommended to string into this on block, but if for whatever reason you do that, then you can keep yourself safe with 5S or 236L, same move. Or you can do the last part to create that strong spacing again that will keep you basically safe. So yes, just a small note. 5MMM from a range will also create pretty solid spacing for 2B, especially if you cancel it into 236L. Just some stuff to keep in mind for when these are blocked. One more thing I forgot to mention about 2M. This will combo from counter hit 5L. Even though normally 5L is +6 on hit, on counter hit it becomes +8. So that's a link into 2M, a true combo, and also 2M from this range will frame trap basically anything the opponent does. So they really just have to respect this string, but only cancel you cancel into 236L on block ideally. If they get hits, then you do the lariat 2-on-4L. If they don't, then you just do this or the laser, but more details on the special moves later. We should also talk about her 5U a bit, which is pretty special. It is a counter, a parry, that starts on frame 5. So not the most abusable thing in the world, like you can't use it to beat out frame traps or whatever. But it has some pretty unique use cases, and in general it just interacts pretty uniquely because, well, it's pretty active for one, and its frame advantage fluctuates just based on the opponent's recovery on the button that they used on you. So for example, if Grand does a 6XL, then let me parry it. This leaves me only +4, so I get to take a turn but not much else. If he does a light, same thing. If I just parry it real quick, +4, I don't get to do much. If he does something more drastic, like this, then I'm +8, and I get to punish with 2M. Not the ideal confirm, but you get the idea. If he does something like, I don't know, this even, if you would, come on now, there we go. Okay, wow, those have the same recovery. I honestly wouldn't have thought, but I don't know, a 5H. Let me see here. +9, I get to punish with a 5M. So it's very much dependent on what move you dodge with this thing, and more often than not it has to be preemptive in neutral. But there are some moves that you can reactively dodge with this, or parry rather, such as the lariat from Soris, and I'm gonna actually show it off real quick. Just as a quick example here for something fairly reasonable to parry on reaction, Soris 236M is a guaranteed throw punish if you parry it. And on the other hand, if you try to spot dodge it, you might even end up negative. Though, of course, mileage may vary depending on just how quickly you dodge it. But, you know, it's not super consistent, while this very much is. Another example is 236U. You can punish it pretty consistently if you spot dodge it, I think. Unless you're like a bit late, even then that's like a close medium, I think, for most characters. But with 2B, it is always, every time without fail, +13, so ample time to get a 5M punish. Or another example, just like a commonly seen block string with Belial. Let's do like 2M, 2M, 5H here. It did not record. God damn it. There we go. A commonly seen block string. Sometimes you can mash on it if you're brave enough. Maybe he can probably frame trap with something after it. I don't know, I'm not a Belial player. But at the same time, if you 5U, then you get a way bigger punish than just the average mash. You get to do like a whole 5H combo if you don't suck like I just did there. Okay, come on now, I have a whole 5 frame window to do this. There we go. So that is a way bigger punish than you can usually get, and this is where 5U shines as a parry. Of course, it's a bit matchup dependent. You have to do a little bit of studying to see what is reliable to parry and what is worth parrying, because in a lot of cases parrying something with 5U will net you be either a punish where other characters aren't guaranteed one, or a way bigger punish than what most characters can get. So it's really just something worth noting. Another couple things about 5U that I want to note: it can be used for a few mind games. So for example, the basic safe block string with 2B is just ending in a spaced 236L, which frame traps from the distance, but you get the idea. If I end with a spaced 236L, I'm still kinda in 6XL range. However, I have enough time to 5U it, and I just get my turn back if I successfully do so. So that is a mind game that can be played. Now, of course, if the opponent sees it coming, 2B is really negative. They can actually just run in and do their absolute highest damage combo on you, so it can be a bit scary. So another option you have in this situation is actually to try a backdash, and depending on how late they might have done the 6XL, you might even be able to whiff punish it. Although if they do it like immediately after, I can't really set that up because I set the bot to counterattack with the recording, and recording a 6XL instantly is practically impossible as far as I know. But point is, backdashing can be a pretty consistent and also safe option to use after a 236L ender, though 5U can be more consistent when it works, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And also, sometimes you won't quite be at the right space to backdash 6XL, provided the opponent does it fast enough, because here he's doing it slowly due to my own skill issue, I guess. Point being, 5U, more rewarding, more risky, more consistent. Backdashing, a bit less consistent, generally a bit less rewarding, but safer after 236L enders. Just something to keep in mind here. And the other thing I was gonna note, 6U also has a brief parry window. I think it's a bit smaller than on 5U, and also rather than frame 5, it starts on frame 7. But it has some unique applications in that it can bait out brave counters, as you can see. And when it baits out a brave counter, whether that be 6U or 5U, 2B is left exactly +5, and that is a guaranteed 5U punish. This follow-up that you can trigger after any parry has 5 frame startup, so it's often her most reliable punish option, but also it is really negative on block. So it's like -12. You can take my word for it on this, but I'll just try to show it off just in case. Wait, I don't know how the hell I would do this. I have to do some DIY shit. But yes, -12, very punishable on block, so you have to be careful what you use it on. But it's probably her most consistent punish tool, and 5U in particular also gives her a block of SKL on hit. so that can be pretty useful. We should talk a bit about the diverse uses for Multistrike Protocol, just outside of combos. So I'm gonna start with 5LM, so this one, and I just held it there because it has 2 versions. So if I do this one, where she fires the gauntlet, then it's basically just a free return to neutral, a free way to disengage. But the opponent has the option to cross it over. So like, if they roll through it, I am -8 and they can punish me. That is where the held version of this comes in, which leaves me +8, and I get at the very least a 2N punish. At least if I'm quick enough about it. Okay, come on now. Let's not suck. That hits on frame 9 for some reason, okay. There we go, that's better. So that's the mind game between these two. In general, if I choose to disengage with this, I just automatically go for the held version. However, if you do it too often, well, it's -21. So technically the opponent can just run up to you and punish you for doing it. Now this is disincentivized by the other option. If they try to run, they'll just get buffed by that gauntlet, and it just goes on like that. But honestly, to me, disengaging with the held version just carries less risk, because I have yet to see anyone dash at me after I did this. So just putting that out there. Let's move on to other follow-ups, other protocols. This has basically 0 utility on offense. Like, it's super negative on block. You just don't want to do it here. However, mid-screen, or full screen rather, you can use it as a funny little surprise check due to the whiff cancels. And it can actually be good in certain matchups such as Vayne, where it'll just go through his shield and still hit him because it's multi-hitting. But yes, it can have some situational uses in neutral, but that's about it for this. It is mainly a combo thing. And then this one, the baseball swing, this has a clean hit timing for it. If you delay it, or no, rather if you hold it enough, then you will get Chubi to fire that little gauntlet, and you can use this as a little free projectile in neutral. It's a bit slow, but it's free, so might as well throw it out once in a while. And it's particularly good if you manage to throw it out, because anything the opponent tries to do after blocking it from full screen will get frame trapped by 236M. So that's a nice little use case for it, though it sees a bit more used in pressure. Oh, but before I forget though, this mind game, I need you to block and do a crazy little thing. There we go. This mind game can be bypassed pretty much entirely by certain SBAs or ultimate skills. Now, maybe not if you fire the gauntlet, but if the special move or the SBA has some invulnerability, then it can bypass the mind game entirely. So be aware of what character you're doing it on and all that. But back to the baseball swing, and I'm gonna need you to block for once in your life. Baseball swing, this is plus on block, +3. So it's good for pressing an advantage if you hold it long enough, but also if you hold it too long, you will get a failed swing. although it spaces her out a lot, so that's something. But what's the mind game here? Well, basically the same, except she also gets a proper frame trap here, because if you just let go immediately, this will frame trap, and it's not super rewarding mid-screen. She doesn't get anything off it really besides some corner carry, but in the corner, it's pretty good. Now, this is if it frame traps. If not, then it'll just space her out at -10. So, really not the end of the world. The opponent is still kind of stuck here. And if she fires the gauntlet, she's plus on block and she can continue offense or start to press an advantage by running in if they are scared enough. And if they cross over through this, Chubby is punishable, or, you know, negative at best. So this is the mind game here. If they cross over, if they try to roll through it preemptively, then they will get donked by you, delaying the follow-up even further. If they just roll immediately and you frame trap, you just do the unheld version, then you're 0. So you can try to use 5U in a situation like that, and if you're quick enough. But of course, if they just block and you just do this, then they can kinda just react to seeing you do this and roll and punish you for charging it too long. But if they wait too long, they're gonna get hit by that and they'll get comboed, as you can see. So it's a lot. It's a pretty layered mind game that you can choose to play against some opponents. Now, of course, they can choose to use a reversal against this though. Or for example, Belial can use his 5U counter against it to just kinda fuck it up, honestly. So again, a little bit matchup dependent, a bit dependent on whether your opponent is willing to DP, if their DP has good enough range for this to not avoid it. Just something else to worry about for the opponent when you're running space pressure on them. That's basically what this is. Oh yeah, one more thing, for real. 5M, if landed at about max range, as you can see, will not be able to combo into the heavy Multistrike Protocol. So in this situation, you will have to just go for 5MMM if you think you're at that distance. If you're up close, then generally it'll work fine. Just if you think you landed it super far away, it's safest to just go for the full 4-part auto combo string. So like I said before, we're gonna start with this bad boy, 2L, or I think that's 2S, but I'm just gonna keep using the technical input notation for these. This is +3 on block, so 2B gets to continue pressure after it, and frame trap stuff if they try to press a button. This move has some pretty straightforward counterplay to it, in that the opponent kinda just needs to jump. So let me just I think I have to set a recording for this real quick, and hold on, there we go. Now this isn't necessarily just a punish outright. Well, it can be, as you can see. In most cases it will be. Let me just get the input right. It's not always gonna be a punish outright. A lot of the time it will be. Sometimes it will just kinda make her block, but that is also good, because that just means she wasted 3 skill points just to get put in a block string, it's still a win. So that's the counterplay to this move. You can also do it on reaction and put her in a block string always. That's the bad part about it, I suppose. There's a lot of answers to it. You can jump it on reaction, and you can also just use a reversal on reaction to the move. A DP, like Gran has his Rising Sword here. Even if I delay this by God knows how many frames, that is a consistent way to punish this move on reaction if the opponent's character has it. So this has some answers. It's plus on block, but easily compatible. What do you do with this move then? Well, you actually use it for something else, or me personally. If I notice that my opponent knows how to combat this, I keep it for something different, which is the situation where they try to preemptively spot dodge, if I can find the option. If they spot dodge this, it's big combo time, because this will link into 5H. Now that's not on every counter hit. A lot of counter hits will just let her link into 5M, but against spot dodge in particular, because it links it hits late into its active frames, then it can link into heavies. If it counter hits otherwise, it's most consistent to combo off it with a 5M. I'm messing up, but it's alright, hopefully you get what I mean. And what actually would incentivize people to spot dodge though? Well, basically all her other specials. So, if Chubby does this, she is negative, she kinda loses a turn. If they spot dodge this, she kinda loses a turn. So on and so forth. If they spot dodge this, she is super negative. So the opponent has a few reasons to try to spot dodge Chubby's pressure, and this move can really disincentivize that if they get their dodge crushed by it. Chuchuel also has a surprisingly good use in neutral at roughly around this range where you're a bit further away than 5H. This can be a good poke to throw out, especially against characters who want to harass you with projectiles, because it can hop over them, kinda like this, and you will get a counter hit, or maybe not, but either way you will get a ground bounce from the Chuchuel, and that will give you some time to run in and start your offense. So it can be pretty good in that regard. The opponent can also try to roll, and this can also catch that. This is one of those cases where in most situations it's most consistent to just confirm with 5M, although sometimes 5H is also possible. Sorry, but something important about this move. If you do it from point blank, then they can freely roll through it and you will be super punishable, as you can see. So in general, if you want to use Chuchuel, you want to keep yourself just a little bit spaced out. Don't do it from point blank or from her light auto combo. It's best practice not to do that. Or well, maybe there is one situation where you can use it from point blank to great effect actually, and that is as a throw bait. If you use it from point blank, then it hits just late enough that you can link it into 5M, because normally you can't really. Gran, I need you to get hit, sir, please. If you just kinda do it normally, then it cannot link into 5M. It can only link into 8 frame or slower buttons. But because it hits later here, the little shockwave on the floor gets to the opponent later, then you can link 5M. Or alternatively, GBVSR for some bigger conversions if you're, if you're like that, if you got those on point. So just another good use for it. But soooo also has a couple other ways to bait throws, and I probably should have mentioned them earlier, but I guess I'm gonna do it now. Her backdash is very good for this purpose. It's pretty fast and pretty elegant, and notably, she converts from these throw baits with her backdash really well because of her auto combo system. Like other characters, they might get like a far medium or far heavy or something, and I don't know, have to convert immediately with a special or raging strike. soooo? No, she can just kinda 5mm and then whatever she wants from there. So backdash throw bait's really good with her. And this also helps her strike throw ability with 5L. Because we mentioned earlier, 5L kinda spaces her out a lot. So if she wants to go for a throw, she will have to walk forward slightly. But then, she can kinda feint a walk forward and then backdash. And 9 times out of 10, people who tech throws with the throw button will get hit by that. So that's something good to abuse. And the other way to throw baits, using her pot float. This is a bit less consistent, I think, because it just barely leaves her +6. So just enough to true string or combo with 5L. If you do it just slightly too high up, then you won't be as plus. This can be mitigated by disengaging the float manually by holding 2 and then pressing JH. But of course this is a little slower, so it might be a little late on the punish. It might not actually punish because of the extra time it takes. But yes, this is another very commonly used throw bait with soooo that you can use. So take note of that. Feel free to mix all of these 3 in whenever you feel like it. Just present the options for the opponent to worry about. On the topic of throw baits, something else that I didn't really mention before that soooo takes advantage of is 6U giving her normals forward momentum. So if she does a normal after this command run, then it gets a little forward slide. You can see it most easily with 5H probably. It gets just a little bit of a slide, and this can come in handy in neutral more than anything. Because in neutral, from roughly this range, you can do like jump scares with dash into throw. And at some point people will expect it. So you can then mix in dash 2L, which will also catch opponents walking back, or you can bait throw techs with this. Just a sliding 5H to the face, because if they try to throw exactly when you're in their face, then they're just gonna get donked and counter hit probably. Now you have to be at this kind of range, because if you do it from too far away, then it's kinda obvious. If you're too close, then they'll probably throw you or mash on you in time. And honestly, if you're at this range, you're better off just starting offense with 5M. But yes, there's this sweet spot where this bait works with surprising effectiveness. At least English. At least as far as some pro players have confirmed, such as laid way back in his own video. I stole this little thing from him, and it works against people looking to tech jump scare throws pretty effectively, and that's big damage. So you can use this little slidey thing to your advantage this way. And also, one more way to throw bait. Well, technically chew, but they're the same concept. You can use Chew36H for this. In the same way that you would use 5H, you can use sorry, voice broke. But in the same way, you can use Chew36H from roughly this range to bait throws, slide into it a bit, and in this case remain plus on block if they just blocked it out. So really strong. Expensive, it takes 5 skill blocks, but very useful. And the same applies for when Chew is tracking the opponent. Just slide, press S, and they'll get counter hits most likely, and then you'll get to convert. So these are all the ways Chew has to bait throws, and they are a bunch. But now we should talk a bit about those special moves I showed off earlier, so let's get back to that. But before that, some example conversions of this stuff, just to show off how rewarding it can actually be. Just like this. That wasn't a counter hit, but a punish is also good. So there you have that. Chew36L. We've mentioned this special a lot before probably, and it's the only one in her kit that doesn't cost any SKL at all. It's her safe on block ender basically. -4, always spaces out of throw range. So yeah, just something to keep her safe generally. But also very good to use when spaced out, because then it's basically a return to neutral or a condemnation for the opponent to be put in 5H range, where she can freely whiff punish them. But yes, very good when used right. But you might have seen earlier, you might remember, if the opponent ever spot dodges this, which can happen if you land the move from far away, because from close up it's 13 frames, but it will become 18 if landed from further away because the first projectile will miss. But with that knowledge, if the opponent spot dodges in this situation, Chew is omega punishable. But there's a way to circumvent this besides committing to this. You can slightly delay the cancel into Chew36L. Now, this is like a very small delay by 2 to 3 frames, I would assume, because, well, you technically can't do that for her auto combos too. I think everything in the game with a cancel has that little tiny window. But yes, there's a slight delay window for this that will catch dodges this way. You will need to practice it because it's a bit tight and even I mess it up from time to time. But it's a really good and free way to discourage spot dodging. And honestly, it's like the main thing she has to look out for in pressure. She won't have to worry about rolls here because this just naturally hits low enough to catch those, so at least that is good. Okay, so the opponent isn't spot dodging or rolling. Instead, they decided to mash their heart out. So what do you do about that? Well, for one, using the laser as a block string ender gives you a big combo, just a pretty big damaging conversion. So that's one way. You will also remain safe if they spot dodge, safe on block, just to show it off if Gran decides to stop being a filthy masher. Completely safe. So this is a good way to discourage mashing, and it actually lends itself to be it lends itself into a funny way to condition people that has worked for me. So you can sometimes do 5mm, stop, 5mm again, 5mm again, do some shimmying, 5mm, stop, and then eventually, when you think they've had enough, they're gonna think like, man, this is really unsafe, and yet they're still stopping on it all the time. Maybe I should like press, I don't know, 6XL or a button or something. And then that moment is when you laser them. So that is a funny but surprisingly effective way to condition people. Though, of course, you can often be wrong about doing this and actually get punished. It's always the safest bet to just go into laser or 236L. But just thought I would let you know because it's a pretty funny thing when it works. Outside of just pressure, the laser is a great tool for far neutral because it travels basically instantly. It clashes with fireballs, like level 1 fireballs, so it's not the best for shutting them down, or at least not as they travel, but it's really good for shutting down people trying to fire these things preemptively. And it's also just good for making people hesitant to approach you, because when this move counter hits, then it's kind of a bad time for them, because it has so much hit stop that you can run from literally full screen and get a meaty 5M to start pressure with. So it's just, it's bad news for them. And again though, you have to be wary if they use higher level projectiles though, and you don't catch the startup in time. There's another move that can be used to play around that, and that is Chubi's grappling hook. This will get invincibility if Chubi hits the opponent with this, even as a fireball travels on the screen. So let me have Gran do one of these real quick, and if I call it out with the grappling hook, then I just phase right through it, and I also get a full combo. Not even just on counter hit, even on normal hit, this will combo into 5M. So it can be a pretty neat way to close the gap and to call out fireballs. But it has to be preemptive though. It's really hard, if impossible, to do it on reaction really, because that tends to happen. The move itself starts up pretty slowly. And this also means that it's easy for the opponent to spot dodge it in neutral. So if that happens, then you just wasted 3 skill bars for nothing. So I would advise that you use this sparingly, or just against opponents that are super fireball happy. Although you also have another thing you can use against them, but we will talk about it later because it's a metered option and we should take this stuff in order. But next, meterless specials and non-EX. We've talked about Chuchuel, let's go for Chuchuem. What does this do? This gravity field pulls opponents into it, although the gravitational pull is very weak. When the opponent is far from it, they can kinda just walk back to avoid it entirely. But it's very strong when up close, because it basically gives Chubi strike throws times infinity as long as it's active. As you can see, it's frame traps or a throw at basically any point. Now there is one notable thing about this pressure. Remember how 5L leaves a 4-frame gap? Well, here it's not gonna get spaced out, so the opponent can actually just throw you here for trying to do this. So how do we discourage this? Well, we can start our pressure with soooo to frame trap it. We can try to backdash to bait it out, and in this case, this can even get a whole 5H punish. And of course, we can try to use the good old pot float, though that's a little less consistent. But those are some options you have to bait opponents trying to throw you out of it, if they are aware that they are able to do it, and if they even process it in time. Because if you use this setup sparingly, then more often than not they'll just get punched in the face by a frame trap or thrown. People often aren't ready to deal with soooo setups, so it's a nice thing to keep in mind, and it really helps our Okizeme, especially mid-screen. It can be a good occasional tool to use just mid-combo to say, okay, I'm stopping here actually, and I'm gonna run fucking corner pressure on you. Just something pretty interesting to keep in mind. And also, the vacuum effect can lead to some funny little corner steals you can do. So you can end the combo and then do something like that to catch opponents off guard. Now of course, the game has a block button, and most of these setups, even though they might not look like it, they can even be mashed on or 2H'd. So this kinda depends on the opponent's reactions and matchup knowledge, but still, again, it's a really good tool to bust out just once in a while, as long as you think it'll catch them off guard. Her lariat, which is this thing, I don't really use it much in neutral. It's honestly mainly a combo tool. It has some range to it. It has some pretty hefty range, so you can sometimes kinda bully your way in with it if you want. And it's also a surprisingly good round start option. The usual ones are 5H, because even though it doesn't quite reach, it will beat out any attempts from the opponent to aggress, to run in with a normal. soooo also a good round start because it does basically the same thing, but also is safer, and if they jump you can anti-air them. And then there's this, as something more drastic. You get a lot of corner carry if it hits, and on block, you're pretty safe. Like, they can't punish you. This move is punishable technically if you don't space it out at all because it's -6, but you can pretty safely use it as a block string ender or a round start. And sometimes if you do it from far enough, you might even end up just so far that sometimes far lights just won't reach soooo and she'll get to whiff punish them, but whatever, very specific situation. You're not gonna use this move in neutral very often, at least I certainly don't. But something that you can also use as a round start is 236H, again. And this is plus on block, but the frame advantage fluctuates. It kinda depends on how close you are, but it's always +4 at the very worst. And as a round start, this is good against opponents who like to use projectiles as round start. So let me get Gran to do like a fireball or something here. This will go clean through it, and you can also convert off it like this with this grappling hook. If you do it quickly enough, I believe you can also link it into 5H, just like this. And there's a really good conversion for almost 6k, just against opponents who do fireball round starts. A good example would probably be like Avatar Belial or something like that, but yes. And as a pressure tool, of course, plus on block can be confirmed on counter hit. Pretty good, but expensive. Frame traps, against spot dodges, it is safe, but negative. So, just pausing here for a second, do excuse me, but it leaves Chubby negative. She loses her turn, especially if they decide to cross over through it. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. It's a good general purpose pressure tool. It's probably like her most straightforward thing. So always good to keep in mind that you have it, just be wary of how expensive it is. 2-on-4H. It's a giant hammer. This move is an interesting one because its properties change wildly depending on where you land it. So if you hit with the center of the hammer tip, it has to be the center, pretty much, then it'll be +6 on block. And it'll also just convert pretty well, because anywhere on the screen that's a 5M conversion, or on counter hits, like for example, let's say the opponent tries to roll through it, because they actually can't do that. This move will always catch rolls. That is a whole 5H conversion of it on counter hit, so that's really good. And it's also really good to use after tip 5H like this in the mid screen. Against immediate evades, immediate spot dodges, it actually leaves 2B+. So it's also pretty good for that. And if you're point blank, you might remember there's not terribly much 2B can do against spot dodges point blank, but she can do the hammer. The hammer which leaves her plus, or against crossovers, even though it doesn't hit with the tip, it will still combo into 5M on counter hit here. So that is pretty handy. On non-counter hits, it can be comboed with 5L as an occasional mid-screen extension, maybe. Very situational, but just thought it was worth noting. So that is the hammer. If it's blocked from far away, or rather just from a poor position, it is -6, so doesn't really make her punishable, because look at all that pushback, but it does end her turn. And it also costs 5 SKL blocks, so you gotta use it a bit wisely. This isn't really something to use after like 5M mid-screen, or I don't know, in most cases, like if I'm super spaced out, I don't like to use this, because sometimes you can get the guard crush, but 5M will whiff. I can't get the situation to play out here, but it can happen. There we go. Even though it was weirdly difficult for me to set it up here properly, it has happened several times to me per game. If I did this, just accidentally spacing myself out of 5M, it happens more often than you would think. So generally, mid-screen 236H is my go-to if I really want plus frames, or just 2-2L, or I just keep myself far away enough that the opponents will hesitate to try to counterattack, because if they do, I'm gonna be too far and they'll just get whiff punished. But it can be good. If you're at 5H range, start at a block string. If you're at 2M range, it's also very good. And something notable about this is that 2M on counter hits will always combo into this, but only on counter hit. On normal hit, it won't. There's no 2 hits combo counter there. It will combo on crouching hits, but it's not often that you would see that happen, just because, well, 2M is a low and people tend to crouch block those. But just something worth noting. This also means that mid-screen, something like this can make for a decent block string, but this is one of those situations where 5M can whiff, as you can see. So use it carefully. Use it if you think it'll work. Opt for 236H if you want just more raw plus frames. Use this if you want to be cautious against rolls or spot dodges. In the corner, personally, I always use 236H just because it gives way better conversions on hits, always. It combos into 5H, as you can see. And it's actually plus on block if this is spot dodged or rolled through after heavy buttons. Wow, that actually drew strong. I didn't think it would, but there we go. It's actually plus just because heavies have that much more block stun. So a few technicalities here and there with the hammer and the missiles, but they are worth knowing, and I hope that you will make good use of them. And her last EX special, 22H. This one has a variety of uses. It just constantly tracks to the opponent, no matter what they do, where they run, they go in the air, it doesn't matter, it's gonna stay on them. So it can be pretty scary in far neutral, because if they try to shoot out a fireball or something and 2B just kind of presses the S button once, they get zapped, and then she runs up to them and starts pressure, and it's just all around a bad time for them. And also, another important thing, she gets throw combos with this, which is pretty absurd, and it's a real staple of her corner pressure, especially for some Okizeme setups. So very good for neutral, where the opponent is forced to play more passive by it, and pressure. But also another thing, besides getting throw conversions off it, it has another surprisingly useful thing that it can do, which is also baiting spot dodges and crossovers. Because if 2B does a block string and then does this, she is allowed to punish if the opponent does crossovers like this. That is a true punish, and then you actually get some really good conversions off this, even mid-screen. So that is very useful. It can even be a heavy punish if you use the move after heavies, because you know, heavies extra block stun and all that. But there you have that, and it can be particularly handy if you're point blank and you're kind of lacking in other ways to throw bait. You can use hammer, but that kind of ends 2B's turn on block. She is forced to block something if the hammer is just held. Sorry. This, on the other hand, is a bit more ambiguous. She gets to punish if the opponent tries to roll or whatever, but if they just sit there and block, technically it's super unsafe. like minus 19. Yeah, that's pretty unsafe technically. But the thing is, so far, absolutely no one has contested this like as many times as I did it, no matter who I did it on, how many times I did it. No one has challenged it, and they've even let me restart my turn after it, because they were just so scared to press. Because this special just looks so similar to other EX moves that she has, that people just, they just aren't ready. So it also serves as an ambiguous pressure reset on top of a bait, on top of a potential just making strike throws way more scary. So it can really be a staple of her kits if you use it well. Although you do have to be pretty careful when you use it, because if this is out, then Chubby cannot use any of her other pod specials, and it also significantly slows down her regeneration of her skill gauge. As you can see, that was way slower, so you really do have to make it count when you use this. We're quickly just gonna go over her ultimate specials. There's not too much to say about them, I don't think. For one, Chew on For You, her metered reversal, nothing particularly crazy to look at here except its range. This thing has some honestly pretty ridiculous range, and even when opponents are spaced out and they don't really expect you to reversal when you're that far away, this can kind of hit them out of whatever they're trying to do. So the range is a pretty useful boon for it. But also, even though it's technically 8 frame startup, that is only for the point blank hitbox, like just right around to be the more out there slices, I guess. The bigger hitbox is on frame 13. So this means sometimes people can accidentally safe jab it. Like, I don't know how to set a recording of the situation here. Night Shifter from the future is here to save the day. There's an example of that situation happening, where her Farlight also does reach from that far. So yes, sometimes if you do your reversal too slowly, or your opponent has a particularly low recovery poke like this, then your reversal can get safe jabbed from those distances. Now, her Choo-Choo U, this thing is basically Okizeme, the special. You can use it after a throw and stuff, you can use it after the end of some corner combos, and it sets up a high-low mix-up for her, which is honestly something that she can just do by default anyway. The mix, what is the mix? Well, safe jump, just do a standard safe jump after a throw, do an empty low, or do a pod float right before landing into JM for a delayed overhead. A little bit more on this Okizeme actually. The reason the delayed overhead works is not because it's like a true mix-up, it actually hits way later than the empty low. It works because the opponent just generally doesn't expect to have to block high that late. Like, they expect the overhead to have already passed by the time that hits, because the safe jump just hits way earlier, or it messes with their attempt to fuzzy block the overhead versus empty low mix-up. So that's why that tends to work, and it also serves as a good bait, because sometimes people will see you stop and try to throw on wake up to like tech your supposed throw that you would be doing, or they would try to immediately brave counter after blocking your safe jump, but there's nothing to block, so they just get a raging strike and get bonked by the JM. So that's why that setup tends to work on Oki. Now, with soooo, you get to do the same thing, but basically just more guaranteed and a little harder to see because of the visual noise that those little explosions create. There's also another thing you can do, from mid-screen especially. This is good for baiting out Brave counters. Now, Brave counter is not something that we've talked about counterplay for a lot, because soooo does have some, but soooo... okay, I gotta set this dude to do a Brave counter after blocking 5 times. The setup is just run to the opponent and use the soooo parry right towards the end. And this will give you a true punish with 5U, because parrying a Brave counter leaves you exactly +5, so you just get to punish it. This is a good setup, especially for mid-screen, because even if they don't Brave counter, then you just get a strike throw anyway with soooo. And it's an automatic Brave counter parry because of the brief parry window on 6U that starts on frame 7. But yes, this can be good for baiting out Brave counters. And another way to bait them out can be through this follow-up. This Multistrike Protocol option, specifically when spaced out enough, can be used to bait out Brave counters like this. Because 5HL, the baseball swing, the moment she's preparing for it, it kinda retracts any extended hurt boxes she may have had. So Brave counter just whiffs and she gets to do that. She can also use it after 5L if it's spaced out enough. Just it takes a bit though. Let me try and set it up here. There it is. I messed up the clean hit timing, but you get the idea. So that is a pretty solid way to bait out Brave counters besides just her parry. And lastly, her giant laser, which is a giant laser. Well, not much to say about it really. It will beat out, it will just eat for breakfast any projectile that isn't also ultimate level, and very notably, it will give a combo anywhere on the screen, as long as you have your grappling hook. If you're closer, then you can try to go for 5H, but it's a bit hard if you're at a range. You can try to go for 5H like this, or 5M for a more free conversion. But yes, this can be super scary in neutral, or at least for soooo's opponents, because even though like she already had this and her grappling hook as threats, this one she can use on reaction, and it can be way more rewarding overall. So definitely keep it in mind. And also, there is a little bit of a mind game in neutral between this and soooo. Like, there is a niche use for this move in neutral, and it is against spot dodges. So let's say the opponent does spot dodge the moment they see a blue flash on the screen. A lot of players have this kind of ingrained in them. It's just like a trained reflex, and even I'm guilty of it. See blue flash, spot dodge. Well, if you do that, and soooo just did soooo, well, you're either gonna get hit by the orbs, or get put in block stun enough for her to approach. So this can be a little bit of a mind game to use to close out a round, a tense round. But of course, this has some pretty simple counterplay, and it's just to learn to roll through both. it's a pretty consistent answer to both options. So yeah, kind of depends on who you're playing against and if they know this. Finally, I'm gonna try to blitz through this last section because honestly the video has turned out to be way longer than I expected it to be, but we're gonna talk about a little bit of our combo structure and how you wanna go about it, some little Okizeme setups in the corner, and what to do after her supers. So combo wise, are you blocking? No, you aren't. Good. Mid screen, you mostly want to go into her Multistrike Protocol. At least if you land a 5H or a 5M. Off light attacks, the Multistrike Protocol is honestly kinda bad unless it puts them in the corner, because it just leaves Chubi really too far to really meaty. So I've made a habit of just doing 236L, which leaves them really close to me and just able to start my pressure however I want. Outside of that, mid-screen, I do this basically whenever I have 50 meter, this little laser conversion, and it basically puts the opponent with the back to the corner, so it drastically improves her corner carry. It's really good. There's one thing to note about it, and it's that if you started off with too many buttons here, the pushback will be increased by the end, and you'll notice that the protocol ender there is going to whiff. So in such situations, you want to do either 5MMM, which will always 100% of the time connect, or go for, that wasn't a true combo from the overhead, but whatever. Just do 5MM and then H protocol. It will have a little bit less corner carry, but you will at least get that little skill block back. So something worth noting for her. And another thing you can do, from 2M especially, it's good to buffer 2-on-4L because it gives significant corner carry, and it's also good when you don't have or don't want to spend the 50 meter after a mash in the corner, because it takes you out of there. It takes you out of a really bad spot, and now you're back to basically mid-screen neutral, which is a way better place for 2B to exist. There we go, I avoided it. But anyway, other notable things. This is a true combo from tip range if you land it. Went over 2M conversions on counter hits. This works if it counter hits, though it's preferable to do into 236H in the corner because 5H conversions. And speaking of the corner, some basic things. You use 2-on-4L a lot here, and something basic would be this. Okay, let me just try not to mess it up for once. There we go. This will give a true safe jump. It's not a lot of damage, but it's inexpensive, and once again will safe jump everything, including the 8-frame reversals, as you can see. Now, if you want more damage and better SKL restoration, you can do this. And this will still safe jump the slower reversals, just not the ultimate ones. So that's pretty good. And other than that, you can do 2 of these into this. It's more expensive, but it's more damage, and it will actually safe jump any reversal as well. So this is basically her simplest combo structure in the corner, And other than that, you can do into 236H, 5H, charged thingy, and into 5M directly into the H protocol. This is how you want to structure your corner combos for maximizing damage. If you want to do a skybound art after that gauntlet, you can do 2H into either art. You can do the normal one or the low HP one, either one works. Although there's a weird thing with it where you have to do the baseball swing early, or 2H will actually not hit. Let me try to get an example here. It's a bit weird and only happens on occasion, but there you have it. If you are unsure, if you are ever unsure, then you can just chew you and call it a day. So that's basically her corner combo structure for best damage. And if you want setups, then basically you can do chew on for you, and then something like this. And then if the opponent doesn't reversal like a maniac here, you get like a strike throw off that. Off this, you get either a meaty or a throw that's solo confirmable. Alternatively, you can do the same thing but set up choo-choo you, or maybe like a meaty choo-choo L. As you can see, that's gonna meaty, and I'm pretty sure with the right spacing that will be safe against slower reversals. But just some setup examples. The one for choo-choo H is particularly good if they block on wake up and try to brave counter. I think this is how I set that up. Let me see. Okay, no. After initial hit. Okay, this is incorrect. Okay, give me just 1 second. You only need to block once. This is a setup that beats brave counters. That's what I'm trying to do here. There we go. Basically, every part of that is brave counter immune, so that's good to use against opponents that are brave counter happy. And we call that setup the Hatsu loop, because Hatsu is the name of the guy who invented it, as far as I'm aware. But there you have that. And as a bonus, if he does wake up with a slow reversal, then this, the jab there, actually will be a safe jab. Okay, I guess it's on hit rather than on wake up, I don't know. This always confuses me. So much for blitzing through this, but there you have it. That is a good old safe jab. And a nice little conversion here. Just because, why not? I can. So that's a really good corner setup for Chubi, and a few other examples with choo-choo you. Let's see here. A little fake cross-up. And yes, that can also jump over slower DPs if they want to try to do that, so that's handy. And of course, you can also do this stuff after something like a double lariat. And there you have, oh wow, okay, that was a bit wacky, but some setup examples would be those. And let's see some super Okizeme. What do we do here? Well, it's a bit hard, but I believe you can get a safe jump against slower reversals. Yes, it's possible to do that. your JH will land a bit spaced, so you're best off following it up with a 2M into whatever, like 236H or something. But you do get a safe jump against lower reversals, not fast ones. And for SSBA, I believe it's the same thing. I haven't checked this one because SSBA basically only ever really kills for me, or is not in the corner. But yes, I was a bit late with the super jump there. It's the same Okizeme for the SSBA. Or of course you can also just opt to run up meaty into a strike throw with 2L or 5L or what have you. Alright, and some anti-air confirms, because these are basically legally mandated. On non-counter hits, you can fairly reliably do something like this. Just QH and then delay 214M, and then from there pick up with 5H into whatever. It will work unless 2H hits the opponent really high up in the air. Most of the time, this should be pretty consistent. And it also doesn't matter really on what horizontal position you hit them in, just vertical height. Otherwise, it's quite consistent. And on the other hand, you get this conversion with a hammer, potentially, and it is a really strong conversion, as you can see. That is a lot of damage for a non-counter hit 2H, but the 2H has to hit a bit frontally, if that makes sense, because if it hits more in the back, then the hammer won't clean hit and it'll be a bit weird to convert. Sorry, that was a bit odd. But in such situations, you can try to save it with like a dash 2M. Let me try and actually showcase it as well. And also, once again, the opponent can't be at the absolute peak of 2H height. But there's an example of me saving it with 5MMM, and the last part of that auto combo is what would have worked there, but in any case, those are anti-air confirms for non-countered and on-counter hits. In general, you can link 5H without any extra resources, but sometimes 2H will hit a bit too low to the ground or a bit too far, if I can get this to happen. Okay, well, yeah, that also counts. Sometimes 5HH will whiff, sometimes a combination of both. So if you want pure consistency, or just can tell visually that you're not in a good spot for this, you can do 6U and get much closer in. And this also provides more corner carry, and it sets up that sweet point blank 5HL that we talked about sometime before, which will always let you link into dash normals even from mid-screen, like without reaching the corner. With your back to the corner, this also allows for some very handy side switches like this. And as a final note, you may have noticed that 5HL can naturally link into 5H if 2B is just close enough to the corner. So a good example, like baiting a crossover on block, pretty please. Let's see here. Okay, wow, okay, doing his best to not block, I see. There we go. In a situation like this, 5H will link. So that is the final note I have for this video. It's been a lot of info dumping and rambling, sometimes maybe for too long, but I hope that what's been shown here will help you on your path to master rank and that you've learned a lot of new things from this. I also hope that you look forward to the much more organized guide that will come after the spring patch. How do I end this? I don't know, glory to mankind or something like that. But jokes aside, thank you very much for watching, especially until the end, and I will see you next time. Take care.